Our next award is the FWA Lifetime Achievement Award, and for that I'd like to bring back Tim Simmons to get the ball rolling on that.
Thanks, Lee. Hope you bear with me a little bit. I'm coming through a little sinus problem, so do the best I can. Today it's an honor to talk about Irv Moss. I've known Irv since I was a junior in high school back in 1963 when I met him, and he was basically developing basketball programs for the state high school tournament. And he grabbed me and said, "Tim, sell them." And that's how I met Irv Moss. So, great guy. He's a graduate of Denver West High School. He's both a Ram and Pioneer. Went to both CSU and the University of Denver. He's an Army veteran. He's been covering sports in the Centennial State for 7 decades, almost 60 years. He started at the Denver Post on February 8th, 1956. He's also covered the Winter and Summer Olympics. And I remember in 2006, I think he's the one that started the football playoff because he was rooming with Hancock in Torino. So I think that's where the idea came. He's going to be inducted later this month into the Colorado High School Hall of Fame. He's been nominated for the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame. And he's one of 2 Irvs in the state of Colorado that knows everybody in the state. The other one being Irv Brown, the legendary basketball official, and there's Irv Moss. He still writes a column called the Colorado Classic for the Denver Post. And even last week, I saw he was covering DU basketball on the same day Vern Rapp, a former Major League manager, passed away. He had 2 bylines in the Denver Post. And Irv, how old are you, 81? Still working hard. Irv has covered the Air Force for about 46 years, on and off for 46 years. Started in 1970. That year the Falcons went 9-3, beat Stanford and Jim Plunkett. And that year Stanford beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl to win the title. He's covered 5 of the 7 coaches at the Air Force Academy. He probably covered the first 2 when they were there, Buck Shaw and Whitlaw, when they were competing at Air Force, had their games at the University of Denver, so I know Irv was probably around for those games. He's covered 20 of the 24 bowl games at Air Force, and he has a 10-10 record. He's probably the only person that's covered every year of the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. It started in 1972, and Irv has been covering Air Force ever since, so he's probably covered every one of them. The way I look at it, he's probably covered 84 Commander-in-Chief games. I don't think there's anybody else in this country that has duplicated that. He's covered 28 of the 30 games that Air Force has played Notre Dame. And he told me the other day probably some of the greatest moments when Air Force beat Notre Dame 4 straight years, 1982 to 1985. He said that was probably some of his greatest moments. He covered 2 of the Air Force teams that went 12-1 in 1982 and 85. And the 85 team got within 1 win of playing for the national championship. He's also been part of a great win when they beat Texas Air Force in 85 in the Blue Bonnet Bowl. He said that was one of the big wins in Air Force history, and he covered that. Irv has covered everything from A to Z in the Rocky Mountain Empire, starting with Air Force, and obviously Zebulon's failure to climb Pikes Peak in 1806. He covered the Wyoming football team for a year, and that's when they had the Black 14. Covered that moment of history in Colorado, I should say in Wyoming. 20 years later, he and Dick Connor, the late Dick Connor, wrote the story about the first African American to own a professional basketball franchise. That was Beecham Lee and Peter Bynum, and that was in 1989. He's been quoted in the Freddie Steinmark book, which was Faith, Family, and Football. The quote was, "If you have ever swatted at a fly with your hand, you know what Lakewood High School football team faced when it tried to stop a 77-yard touchdown run by Wheat Ridge's Fred Steinmark that whipped the Tigers." And to note, Tom Hancock coached that team. I don't know if it's any relation to Bill, but there was a Hancock there. And finally, someone told me, said Irv ought to get out of the business. He's too old school. He should just move on and retire. And I responded, I said, Irv laid the foundation at the old school, and you need someone to continue holding on to that base. So at this time, I'd like to present Irv Moss. And everybody always asks, what's his first name? It's Homer. Homer Irv Moss.
Thank you, Tim. As you can see, I'm ready to start the next 50. But that still wouldn't be long enough to outlast Steve Richardson, I don't think. It's been really a pleasure being here today. Met some people that I've known for a long time. Steve Hatchell, years ago, was on our Friday night high school crew at the Denver Post, and he's agreed to come back next season and help us out, and that'll be a great addition. It's been really a great run for me covering college football. As far as I'm concerned, certainly the best sport to cover. It's given me opportunities to see places that you hear about, and it was a wonderful thing to go and cover a game at West Point. For me, maybe the best road trip in college football, to see a game at Army. And certainly everyone would understand the advantages of covering a game at South Bend, Notre Dame. And as Tim mentioned, the little Air Force Falcons over one period of time beat the Irish 4 straight years, unheard of. But it was certainly great to cover those games and witness what happened, and a very dramatic time. I'd like to mention some people who along the way were really great people to be around and instrumental in my feelings toward college football. And start with Ben Martin at Air Force, Eddie Crowder at Colorado, and Sonny Lubeck at CSU. And there were certainly others, Lloyd Eaton and Fritz Shermer at Wyoming. And then the rest of the Air Force coaches, even Bill Parcells. A lot of people don't remember the fact that he coached Air Force for 1 year. I think that was enough for him. He's a little more tightly wound, I guess, than to spend much more time at a service academy where you're limited to about an hour and a half of practice every day. That he was just getting started with the hour and a half. And then after Bill, Ken Hatfield came, and Fisher DeBerry followed that. Troy Calhoun is there now, and maintaining a winning attitude as far as the Air Force is concerned. The players obviously are wonderful people to be around. I had the privilege of covering Chad Hennings when he was at Air Force, Joe Romig when he was at Colorado, and Bradley Van Pelt when he was at CSU, defensive tackle that I'll never forget, Larry Nels at Wyoming. These were all great athletes, and there were many of them. I'd be up here all day if I wanted to name them all. But this award is very meaningful to me, and I want to thank the Football Writers Association for giving me this award, and congratulations to all of the other award winners here today. Thank you.